Aloha and good morning, everybody. Tommy Stark. I'm 72 years old and have lived on the north uh, part of Capono Street for over 40 years. My home is paid for. I'm living on Social Security at $760 a month. We all want to go home. The 90 days of the mandatory evacuation has paid its toll on lots of us. Yesterday, I collected over 50 signatures just at the barricades alone of people who want to go home. All the lava action has been downslope, and our homes and streets are fine. I've lost my roommates and tenants, which has caused financial grief to me and to them as well. Cutting our power with no notice. Elko even said that, well, they were forced by the civil defense to just pull the plug. And we asked them, did you give any comment about people on life support? And they said, no, but we didn't think of that. Anyway, all they have to do is flip the switch and we're back online. It's still there. The grid is still there. The power poles are there. The wires are there. Everything is still there. They just need to turn it on. I refer you to the petition to the mayor to move the demarcation line east of Luana Street border where everything has been destroyed and is continuing, as of 2 days ago, on an easterly away from us all. We have got through our representative, Eileen O'Hara. She has a letter to the mayor which she has given to you all. She said that you all have this. I beg you to read it. I invite you to my home on Capono Street in Leilani. Come and see us. You can see that there's been no problems there. Once in a while in the 90 days to 120 days, maybe 10 minutes of bad air, and then it's gone. It's not like, I feel so sorry for everybody that's lost their homes. My heart goes out to them. But we have been kind of just a little island separated from everybody, and we just want to go home. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Stark.
Thank you.
Mr. Andrews, identify yourself for the record and go ahead with your testimony.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name's Andy Andrews. My wife Pam and I have lived in own land and lived in Leilani Estates for 13 years. We retired there. There's going to be a bunch of people today who are going to be in the same position as Tommy in that their homes are in this kind of a limbo. Mine's not. I'm in Upper Leilani. I've been able to live in my home for most of the time since the May 3rd event. I'm going to speak specifically, though, to another thing that's in that limbo, which is our community center. Leilani Estates is a really amazing community. We have a sense of friendship and caring and brother and sisterhood that I've never experienced anywhere in any other community in my entire life, and I've lived a lot of places. I'm 70. I was just talking to Harry. He told me I'm young, but sometimes it doesn't feel that way. At the community center, we did music events. I ran a couple of things. I ran the Puna Ukulele and Kanikapila Association every 2 weeks, and we had 60 to 80 people show up for 7 years. We did movie night once a month where we had 20 to 120 people come and watch movies and eat popcorn together. We did, I taught music theory there. This was all free. It was all for the community. I'm not here to toot my own horn. I'm talking about the community center serving this function. My wife danced hula there with a wonderful group of women who, and did it twice a week for about 5 years. We had potlucks, we had party. My grandchildren played at the playground there. The Neighborhood Watch was based out of there, and it was the Neighborhood Watch that made Leilani Estates the safest community in all of Puna, and we were really proud of that. We really felt like we lived in a place where we all really cared a lot about each other. But the community center is more than a building. It's the center. It's the heart and soul. It's the pico of our community. Everything about our community made us feel good about that community center. As Tommy just said, there's no reason at all that that community center needs to be closed down anymore. I'm sure it was done with the best of intentions and not knowing what was going to happen, but we have 93 days now thankfully, our community center has been spared. The air has been good. The buildings are there. The only thing we're lacking is the right to go back there and the power, literally power, electricity to go back there. Reopening our community center would be a huge gesture for our community to feel like that we're back and that we're going to move ahead and that Leilani will be strong again and that Puna will be strong again, and that those of us who have grown to love this place and love everything about it could once again have this symbol and this place for us to gather and to be strong at and to come out of this event feeling really good about the fact that we came together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And now, Pahoa?
My name is Elliot Rosen. I've been a Leilani resident since 2000. I live on Moku Street, which is one street below the easternmost barricade. I'd like to just build on what the last two testifiers have said, in the sense of that I think that in this whole issue, science and safety should be the issue. I've been assured in speaking to several of the USGS people that lava does not flow against gravity, that the lava sheds of the more active, let's say the active fissures 10 and 9, which are near Leilani, the lava shed would be going southward. The SO2 levels, based on me speaking to civil defense, has been up and down times, but in the safe zone for a long time. So I just want to conclude by saying that in light of the pause or possible stoppage of the lava and the fact that the community center is such a vital place, and the fact that there's no difference appreciably between Pomokai Street, which is open to residents, and Moku Street people and below, that the civil defense and the mayor and whoever makes the decision should open it up. And the sirens, which work perfectly at the beginning of an incident, could work just as well to get anybody out of harm's way. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Go ahead with your next testifier.
And now we have John Olson.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Morning.
I'm speaking for myself as a resident of Leilani Estates. My residence is gone. First thing I'll share with you is that is not a surprise. When I bought my property and moved there, it was either 89 or 90. I had someone from USGS come down and explain to me what the crack in the backyard meant. Yeah, I knew. What stunned me was the number of people who came and went as residents in Leilani who had no idea. And whose obligation was it to inform them of the risk that they were taking? That's one issue that we need to have further discussion about. We all know how the subdivision came into existence. The state of Hawaii allowed, the county permitted the subdivision with full knowledge of the risk. Those two bodies did not pass the seriousness of that risk along to the owners going forward. That's one obligation that was missed. The other obligation was that of notification. I knew, because I've spoken to many of the people at USGS over the last nearly 30 years about chain of events, possibility, how you would know going forward. The collapse of Pahoa was a giant red flag. The county's response to that was all but non-existent in terms of notification of those people living directly on the RIF, as Leilani does. I will tell you that I'm ICS compliant, Integrated Systems Command, and a process where you do a tabletop of a potential emergency? When was the last one that was done? And has that information been disseminated to those people in those areas? This is an organizational matter. Much of the chaos that the residents endured should not have happened. A more thorough process, a more thorough evaluation of this needs to be done. If you'll recall, I chaired the last and accepted Puna Community Development Plan. In that process, we tried to get more relevant information into that document. The planning department was ambivalent about that. I'll leave it at that. We're certainly going to talk about this a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we come back to Hilo.
My name is Gloria Turkowski. My husband Jay and I have bought our home in 2009 at Leilani Estates. We had to take care of business back on the mainland for a few years, but we moved permanently, retired, and we're permanently here in August of 2012. It has been very peaceful, and all of the elements that Andy talked about were part of our existence here until May 3rd. In fact, the day before, my girlfriend and I walked our normal 4 miles, and we noticed a couple of cracks in the road, but oh well, such as such. So we went back home, and the next day, the eruption happened. So we moved back to our my sister-in-law's, Jay's sister's home in Hilo. So we are fortunate to have a place to go there. Figured short time. We went there for a week, and then we noticed that all of our friends in the neighborhood were doing just fine being there, and we went back. A week later, we went back to our home in Leilani Estates. I have asthma, and my breathing had been fine, absolutely fine until June 1st when Halco turned off our power. And I'm fortunate we were there at the time because my husband knew what the power was like, and so he said, we better go get our freezer. And we took our freezer to Andy, the last testifier, home, and it's been there since. We had 3 weeks of perfect existence there. Then there was a mandatory evacuation that the power out happened. We went back to Jay's sisters for another week. And then we had some friends from my church who wanted to let us stay at their home while they were in Alaska for a month, so we went there for a month. And then we had another friend who was also on vacation, and that was Andy there, who said that we could stay at their home even after they got back from vacation. So we've been at their home for another month. We want to move back to the home. We think it's perfectly safe for us, and I've been an asthmatic for a long time, and the air is fine. We have been every day for the last 2 weeks moving a container in case we have to move a sixth time to a home that we just purchased in Ainaloa. So we're packing a container every day, and we sit in that air every day. It's just fine. So we wanted to say we need to get our stuff back. My husband is president of Leilani Estates Community, and we're on the same street as the community center, Moku Street. So we also have a benefit to see what can be accomplished there. That's all. Thank you.
Mahalo for your testimony. Ms. Pulelehua, go ahead, identify yourself for the record.
Aloha mai kako,
Aloha.
ko'inoa, pulelehua, okea noi noi oshiyama. I am hearing impaired, and so I am not able to hear much of what has been said. So I may be repetitive. I apologize. I came to the Big Island starting in 1975 and came and went and living, planning with a purchase of a home in Leilani Estates in 2001. The remodeling was finished by 2007. Leilani Estates has provided me with a precious little home that has been my pu'u honua, my place of refuge, but also of learning opportunity and community and profound aloha. Leilani Estates is an active, organized, daring, with all the different opportunities for learning, none of which costs a cent. I personally have been engaged in learning hula, qigong, tai chi. I've been dancing hula for 40 years and teach a class in language and culture. And I can go on, and I think many have, Andy especially gave you some ideas there. And so on May 3rd, the police came to my driveway and said, "You must leave." Seven cats, a house full of 100 years of memories, 1,000 books, artifacts from all over the Pacific and the world. And they want me to leave now and leave it all. And so I did. I cooperated. On May 4th and 5th, we find out that we can still go back, but they wouldn't let us back. And so I lost it all, and I live with the knowledge that I betrayed my creatures that I cared for and who cared for me. And that means the house too. And so I want to say that, yes, I understand the people who implemented those. The people who should be a part of implementation, decision-making, assessing, and finally, playing the part should be the people of Leilani Estates. They have the skills, the knowledge, the aloha, and this is what keeps us alive, is that, the aloha that prevails there, the determination. And so I ask you please to consider our involvement in all decision-making, all implementation, all assessments. We have the skills and the knowledge.
Mahalo so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pahoa?
Good morning, Council.
Good
My name is
morning.
Jay Turkowski. I sit before you as president of the Leilani Community Association. I also want to thank specifically Eileen for all she's done in trying to help us. The issue I want to address this morning is a disaster preparedness plan which we worked out as a committee in cooperation with a civil defense representative about 3 to 4 years ago. We met a number of times. We covered what disasters Leilani could face, which ones they wouldn't. We developed how we would respond to each particular disaster. This bounced back and forth and became about, as I recall, 32 or 34-page document. It employed the use of Neighborhood Watch and our CERT team, created a chain of command should any event happen, and that chain may vary based upon the particular disaster. This plan was approved, reviewed and approved by the board of directors of Leilani Estates, submitted back to the county for its approval, and we've never heard back. Therefore, we were not permitted or allowed the opportunity to become involved in the management of this disaster, which we would have done significantly differently with a little more humanity, I think, than what has happened. Basically, we were, through county action, unable to serve our membership in the manner for which They basically have elected us. Or expected. And I'll end my testimony there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your next testifier, please.
My name is Hendrika Rieder. I own 3 acres in Leilani Estates, both in Unit 1 and Unit 2. I've lived in Puna for 32 years, including several years in Kalapana until the lava covered the house I was living in there. So I have a little experience, but there are many unknowns when you live on a risk zone. And the only thing that I know this morning is that, for one, Fissure 8 has a very low level of lava in the pond that's still there. Along the coastline, there are still some lava ooze-outs. Air conditions in Leilani Estates have been wonderful, greatly improved. Hector has begun to turn towards the west, and we're well out of that mess, out of that harm's way. And the first big swell at Pohiki is making beautiful waves at elevators. I am a surfer girl. So 6, in civil defense's own words, the eruption activity has decreased. I would like to please decrease civil defense's involvement in making decisions for us without our input whatsoever, decisions that affect our daily lives. I suggest for our safety to use an alarm system instead of roadblocks at the top of Leilani. Please remove the placard system. In my opinion, it has not helped us at all to make us safer. Lift the restrictions, all of those restrictions, at least down to Pomaikai barricade. I am emotionally exhausted. I need my friends and family to come to my house and help me in their own cars. I need to hire people to come and help fix my home, my yard, the business that I was running from there, to rebuild it with their own work trucks. I cannot drive to Hilo and have everybody meet me there to get pink placards. Last week I got very sick, and my best friend couldn't even come to bring me the medicine that I needed. So I had to ask a neighbor. There's much healing work ahead for all of us in Puna. Please have compassion. Pele is not stressing me out any longer. It's living under almost martial law conditions that does. Another issue is helicopter noise, but I'll leave that to somebody else. Thank you very much. Aloha.
Aloha, mahalo for your testimony. Here, would please D. Michael Steele come up, and Pete Wilson. Identify yourself for the record. You
I
have
am
3
Michael
minutes.
Steele.
Thank you.
Unlike many of my neighbors, I moved in October of 2017, so I'm not as long-lived, but I am as passionate about the impacts that civil defense has had on us. I will not repeat what you've heard because that was very clear and very passionate. I will add a 3-hour wait in my car on the day that I learned from social media that I could go in to see my house 4 days after the first evacuation. A 3-hour wait on Route 130, not knowing if I were able to get in there or not. On an 81-degree day, and I was not the only one when I left. There was the same long line of cars waiting to go in. That's an example of what we've had to put up with. Constantly being asked for name, address, phone, car license, show your license, when the officials there at the barricades did not know who we are. The placard system, I agree, has been awful. In my opinion, the mayor, the governor, civil defense clearly believe that homeowners are either not intelligent enough or not capable enough to determine our own safety. The mayor has decided a situation is not safe for us. Why is that? Clearly, we must not be able to do that for ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm 62. At least 40 years ago, I proved to my parents that they could no longer make my life decisions. Unfortunately, these officials tell me I cannot, because they're saying I cannot go back to my home without their permission, without asking, without getting that key unlocked. I wish my parents were alive today to witness my new parents and my new nannies making these life decisions for me. Would you like the mayor making your life decisions for you? Thank you.
Olive. Mr. Wilson, go ahead, you have 3 minutes. Press that button. I think it's on.
Okay. My name's Pete Wilson. I'm 72 years old, and
Bring
I've
the
been
mic-
making...
Bring the mic.
Closer?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
I've been making decisions about the same length of time as him. But people don't think we can make decisions. The point's been made. My wife and I came here for a vacation. Before we had left, 2 weeks later, we bought our first piece of land in Leilani. It's at the juncture, it's on Kahukai between Moku and Kapono, and it's a very lucky position. We are very blessed in having chosen that space because there has never, ever been an air quality issue. My wife has never even opened her SO2 mask, which we were luckily able to get. And we don't have any tephra. We don't have any Pele's hair. It blows from the east to the west. We're in a position, unlike a lot of people, where there is no issue of that nature. So in 2012, we moved here to build a house, the house that we planned to die in, if everything worked out the way we planned. But on May 3rd, Civil Defense told everyone in Leilani to evacuate. We decided that we were adult enough to figure out what to do. We didn't leave. 7 to 10 days after that date, we were finally allowed to leave Leilani Estates. Prior to that, we were essentially locked in Leilani. If we left, we could never come back in. Then they allowed us out, but we had a curfew. A curfew. 72-year-old people don't have to usually pay attention to curfews. We had to be in before 6 o'clock, and if we left, we could not leave before 7 o'clock in the morning. That wouldn't allow us to get to any of the meetings regarding what was happening in our area. No other development in Puna has been constrained as Leilani has by the civil authorities. None. On May 28th, residents of Leilani convened at the Leilani Community Association to sign a petition requesting that the curfew be lifted. We had arranged to have the signing start at 5 o'clock. At 5:10, 6 police cars with sirens blaring, bubblegum machines moving. The officers were unidentifiable because they were wearing SO2 masks and covering their nameplates were being covered. And they said there was an SO2 situation. There was none. Check the records. It was a total fabrication as far as I'm concerned. And they were attempting to use shock and awe to disrupt a legal, peaceful public gathering at the community association. With no notification on May 25th, the electric power was turned off at my location. 3 days later, cable went.
Thank you. Can you please summarize?
Excuse me?
Can you please summarize your statement, if you can?
All I'm saying is it's bad enough to being in the midst of a natural disaster, but when the civil authorities make it worse by their actions, by their disinformation, their misinformation, especially concerning air quality, by their inconsistency in enforcement of their own protocols, by their threats of physical incarceration for going to our homes or being on our streets, the angst, the emotional disruption, the financial dislocation, all contribute to an inability to cognitively and emotionally function. I've experienced it. Most of these people have experienced it.
Thank you.
The actions of the civil authorities have been peremptory, mismanaged, with unintended consequences. There's been no overall plan for this disaster, and I do not know why these people were hired to deal with an emergency management situation. Thank you for your time, and I want to thank Eileen O'Hara for enabling us to actually have a voice.
Thank you very much. Before I call the next 2 testifiers, could I please call up Jeffrey Foster and Tiffany Edwards Hunt, and then I'm going to go to Pahoa for your next 2 testifiers.
Aloha, County Council members. Finance Committee. I just want to quickly echo the similar sentiments of our Leilani residents. My brother is a Leilani resident, and many of my friends are, and they're all working, but they express similar situations. So I fully support them. This is my community, and I am wearing this hat purposely. I'd love for you to please ask me about the Pahoa swim team, but I need to tell you to please consider a moratorium on our commercial property taxes. I was completely appalled and horrified and scared when I opened my property tax bill and received the full commercial rate for our business in Pahoa. I need to tell you that I have seen our business go from 60% loss to 80% loss, and now for July, 90% loss. I brought these Puna Strong hats because this is all I'm selling, okay? I don't sell anything else but Puna Strong, and I have a full inventory. Please, I'll show you what I have in my Pahoa store. There's no business in Pahoa, and people who think there is business, they can go to Kaleo's and enjoy the evening and the romanticism of Kaleo's and the glow. But there's other restaurant, at least one owner here that's going to testify about the reality, okay? I have to sell 400 Puna Strong hats in order to pay my property tax bill. I brought the swim cap and the goggles to show you that I can't sell them because we don't have a pool that's open. Please, when you go into your discussion, call me back up so I can tell you more about the Pahoa swim team. But I need to tell you about the commerce in Pahoa and the fact that I don't have time to walk the street and get everybody on board, and everyone is in survival mode. So they don't have time to come here. Main Street Pahoa, unfortunately, they didn't plan it properly. They were having their meeting just at the same time as you. But Russell Ruderman of Island Naturals, Matt Purvis of Ten Shack Bakery, George Ostmiller, who rents to Growers Supply, Sandra Baker, who's in the audience, who rents space for her Stratos New York Pizza, Nancy DeMello of Habitat Tattoo. Those are the people who I have gotten commitments from, who support me in asking you to please consider giving us a break on our taxes while we're struggling to even pay I have vendors who are wondering what's up. Chase MasterCard, it's a nightmare, and I'll spare you from crying and whining. This is just reality, and I lost my business as soon as the beach park was closed, and that was before it was taken by the lava or that any of the access was taken. And surfers were ticketed. Nobody was encouraged to even go past the barriers. So it's very grim in Pahoa, and I can't believe that we're being expected to pay the full bill.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. Mr. Foster, go ahead.
Councilperson David.
Thank you.
Council members.
Press your, yes.
Councilmember David, council members. First of all, my name is Jeffrey Foster. I'm an attorney here on the Big Island in Kealakekua, but I'm not here as an attorney today. I'm here to support my friend Tiffany and the members of the Pahoa business community who I've spent a fair amount of time with recently and had an opportunity to hear some of the struggles that they're dealing with. And unfortunately, those struggles are not just for the business owners. Those struggles will be all of our struggles if we don't do something to help them. Property taxes, any additional anything that the council can do to help the business owners, the real property owners, and the community in Pahoa who unfortunately now, from what I understand, commerce has moved to Kea'au and to Hilo, and the business owners in Pahoa are left to essentially fend for themselves at this point. And I just really am here to plea and to beg on behalf of my friend Tiffany and the business owners in Pahoa to give them the relief that they need, because if we don't give them the relief that we need, it's all of us that are going to end up having to sit in somewhere else other than Pahoa to enjoy food, to buy our clothes, to do the things that people in Pahoa are able to do at this point in time. So please save Pahoa business owners. At least a year moratorium on property taxes and anything else you can do to help would be greatly appreciated. Aloha to you all. Mahalo.
Mahalo for your testimony.
My name is Bo Brita. I live in a beautiful house my husband built with his own two hands 6 years ago. We came here to retire and to die on this beautiful island. We used to come here on vacation, and it was so lovely every time we came that we bought land. We have been a victim of a political move. The concrete barrier on Pomokai, which now prevents us from going to our house, was placed by civil defense in order to stop the people in Leilani from going to their community center and holding on to their feelings for the land. They wanted to demoralize us. They shut off the electricity. They shut off the internet. There was no reason up there. As you have, I'm not going to reiterate, you've heard about the fact that we're up high on Kahukai and Pomokai. The lava is going down to the sea. It's not coming up. The air is fine. Very little Pele's here and other matter because of the prevailing winds. We are victims of a political move. I'm not going to reiterate the rumors, which you have probably all heard, about our fears, our anxieties about the county wanting to steal our land. We received letters telling us that our homes are worth nothing and that we have no home taxes to pay because our homes are worth nothing. Just imagine if you received a letter like that in Hilo. How would you feel? You would feel that suddenly you had something that you had spent thousands and thousands of dollars on, and it was worth nothing because someone tells you that, even though it's beautiful and functioning. My animals are there, my fruit trees, my heart. I'm trying not to be emotional, but I think you must have realized that all of us, the stress, the anxiety, the living in limbo, and being told by civil defense every day a different story because the people running it have no plan and they change their minds every day. Mahalo.
Thank you so much.
Morning, Sarah Steiner from Pohoiki Road. I want to talk about Communication 1012. And for 3 months now, the state and county has spent probably, 10 or $15 million on police and National Guard to keep the residents away from their homes as the lava is coming. And then since the lava has been coming, we've been prevented. You know, I wanted to go hike to my property last week or so. I went and talked to the police and they told me down at the barricade at Mackenzie, they told me that it was not safe in there because there's guys running around. They stole some vans from Ku'okala and they probably have weapons and they're just driving around in all our properties, living at our houses. You know, you can't go into Leilani to see the lava, that we were allowed to build subdivisions on cooling lava in 1955 and we get to live here. And the minute the lava comes, we don't get to see it. The tourists don't get to see it. And so they've stopped coming. And really you guys, okay, let's see. You stopped bus service down to Kalapana. You stopped letting us put our trash down there. If you're a media person, you can get escorted in, by the National Guard to go see the lava. And if you want to go save animals, you can go in and go on anybody's property and save animals. And so I'm disappointed how the money's been used this time. And now that the lava's stopped, there should be no reason that people cannot drive directly up to it. They need to let the tourists park on Highway 132, park at Lava Tree Park, walk and see the lava. We need to have some resident-friendly opportunities here and not just, use the police and the National Guard against the people. And you've used all these emergency funds against us, and now look, they're gone. They've taken their barricades, they've taken their porta potties and all that stuff, and they've gone, and all that money is gone. It didn't help anybody. The only different thing in this eruption that I can tell is that there's SO2 meters now, and so they use that to keep the people away from their property. And then the last thing is that they're letting the police here in a state of emergency arrest people as we speak down in Kalapana for growing weed, okay? They let the meth heads repeatedly run home invasion rings and let them back out on because they're confidential informants and they might turn in some pot growers. You're using our funds here to eradicate cannabis, and thank you, I'm sorry, but that's what they're doing today down in Kalapana, arresting people flying around with our money. Thank you. Please do something right for us.
Thank you for your testimony. Go ahead with your next testifier, Pahoa.
Yes, hi, camera's right there. My name is Matt Purvis, and I'm the president of the Main Street Pahoa organization or association. And just for a little reference, so we've been the primary association for Pahoa in terms of advocating for Pahoa Town for 25 years, since 1993. I do have an official thing I want to communicate from Main Street. In other words, it's from our organization, has to do with lava viewing. And I'm testifying on 1012 as well. And in terms of the lava viewing, our word is we need to have the lava viewing and we need to have it now, meaning soon. And in that, we need to make sure that as we take plans to do lava viewing, and of course, even though the lava has subsided some, it doesn't change the fact that tourists want to come here, people want to return, and it's not clear whether they can or how they can, and we see them parking over by the dump and parking over by the high school, and they don't know where to go. We understand as a town and as an organization that we also need to bring forth a unified voice of how that's going to happen, and we're willing to do that, and we will do that, but we needed to make sure that it benefits Pahoa because we've been suffering a lot through this disaster. So that's from Main Street Pahoa, and then from myself as a business owner on the Main Street of Pahoa, I own a bakery here. I was just looking at the numbers now, and I think I've done better than some of the other businesses, but I lost about 40% of my sales right as soon as this disaster hit. Since that time, that doesn't really tell the story because I lost like 200% of my actual income. In other words, I've had to take loans in order to maintain paying my employees and things like that. So just to give you a perspective, I believe I've actually done better than a lot of other businesses because most of my business is local. So we are suffering. We need to, my main point in that is that as you make decisions and as you consider next steps, some businesses are not going to survive. Some are barely going to survive. We need you to make sure you're considering us in the decisions that you make about lava viewing, about tourism in general, and we'll do our part to have a unified voice as to what that looks like. So when you hear our council people, when you hear even our state reps, and when you hear organizations like Main Street Pahoa speaking, please take it very seriously that it's the voices of the people who live here and who are going through this, and take those voices very seriously as we need to have a seat at the table for that. And I feel to some extent that hasn't happened. I sympathize that many people in this disaster are doing jobs that they weren't normally doing or they're not trained for. I understand all of that. I do also want to mention that the DLNR ticketing and things like that really did spiral way out of control to where people are getting ticketed for being on their own property, for standing on their own roads. That's crazy. I think that there should be like a blanket way for people to not even have to show up to court for that. This is me speaking personally. I believe that's mostly what I want to say. take seriously what Councilwoman O'Hara and Jen Ruggles and whoever comes in has to say, because they're speaking on our behalf and we are speaking to them. That's basically it. Thank you.
Jean Graham, I'm going to talk fast.
No, you don't have to.
Okay, we're hearing from some of the businesses in Pahoa how much it's suffering because of the lava flow. I will tell you there is one group that is not suffering and is profiting mightily from our tragedy, and that's the helicopter tour industry. They do it at the expense of residents. They pay nothing to us, and here's how they pay nothing. While we are paying excise taxes and state taxes, helicopter companies, you might know, are exempt from having to pay the excise tax, which is 4.5%, and does make up 45% of Hawaii's taxable income, which is the biggest segment of taxable income. Helicopter tour companies can fly unregulated and as much as they want, where they want, when they want, and they pay nothing to Lower Puna, they pay nothing to Pahoa, and they profit fairly mightily from it. Residents, when they complain about helicopters and their freeloading, basically, are cast as anti-tourism cranks. And since Hawaii's #1 industry is tourism, you know, residents seem to take a back seat when it comes to try to regulating the industry. Taxes do pay for government infrastructure, roads, salaries. They pay the expense of this recovery. We're going to have to clear a lot of roads. Residents don't get consideration. It puts them in the back seat because Hawaii tourism is considered sacred, and you know that's when you think about helicopter operators being exempt from this huge tax. Let's just take an example. Blue Hawaiian is the largest operator, and looking at their 2014 returns when they were a public company, they are on track probably to make about $70 to $80 million this year, and the taxes we're missing from them not paying the GET are $3.3 million. They are likewise exempt from state taxes because they are now a holding of a private equity group called American Securities based in New York. They also don't pay state taxes, and on an EBIT of 20%, they are missing $900,000.
Yes, summarize. You have 30
Okay.
seconds to summarize.
So, two things we need that the city council could probably do is start hounding them on taxes. You can change tax law. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of helicopters being exempt from GET, but it can be changed. The second thing is we need to regulate where they go and when they go. New York and LA have both shown the ability to do it, and we don't because they complain that we're going to cost them money if they have to alter routes.
Thank you. Mahalo for your testimony. Senator Ruderman, identify yourself for the record.
Thank you. My name's Russell Ruderman. I didn't write down, I would also like to comment briefly on Resolution 650-18, if I could have an extra half a minute to do so. I am fully in support of that. I think it's the purchase of Waikapuna is a wonderful opportunity for us. As you know, we did just lose the parcel we were going to spend some money on in Kapoho. And I don't know that there's other large, unspoiled oceanside large acreage in the state to have, so I think it's a bargain. I think it'd be a wonderful way for our county to invest in our future. And I will transition now to discussing communication number 1012, if that's okay. I want to thank the council for hearing that, and thank you, Councilmember O'Hara, for bringing this forward. Mostly I want to echo what was said before about the economic crises in Pahoa and Volcano Village. We've been mostly hearing about Pahoa, but Volcano is going through the exact same thing with the closure of the national park. And I'm speaking mostly as a business owner, not as a state senator here. And I was asked to come and speak because I do own a business in Pahoa, and I'm very aware of with the secondary effects from the crisis. Most of these effects were not necessary, but they're ongoing. And with some support, maybe we can save some businesses. By not necessary, I mean, for example, if a lava viewing area had been established and still could, it would save all of the businesses in Pahoa. So far, it hasn't happened. My store, which is a grocery store, Island Naturals in Pahoa, we're down about 50% of our sales. And that's in large part because Pahoa area has lost half of its residents. It's lost all of its tourists. And for many of the residents that are remaining, they've lost their economic base. If they owned a flower farm or vacation rental in Pahoa, their livelihood is gone too. So we not only lost a lot of people, we lost a lot of their income. I'm not here to cry the blues for my business because we have relatively deep pockets in a couple other locations. We'll survive this. But we did cut back our hours. We did lay off people. It has an effect on real people. So I'm not worried for us. I'm very worried for the other stores in town, mom and pop stores, the little gift shops. If my grocery store is down 50%, I can only imagine what a gift shop is down. And I don't think we want to lose our towns, the economic and the livelihood that those towns bring. Let me also take a moment, please, to echo what some people have said about the treatment of the people in Leilani in particular and in evacuated areas. You know, we've been kept physically safe, but we have not taken care of the people that were affected by it. There was great needs, there's urgent needs, and they're all unmet needs at this point. I understand the need to keep people safe. You know, there's perhaps a spectrum from safety over on one side and freedom on the other side. And we have chosen to be almost completely on safety side, and maybe that's a defendable position. So while I understand that, I do not understand the rude, insensitive, and even cruel treatment of our people. The people on their own property in their time of crisis have been treated in ways that you can't believe. And now I am speaking of a senator because I hear these stories all the time. They call me and complain. I can't do much about it. Usually it's civil defense and doe care. I think that our Hawaii County Police have been admirable. But I've heard terrible stories about doe care and civil defense, and I think that's unnecessary. I will summarize.
Thank you very much.
We have had a profound lack of leadership from the county in our time of need. A lack of leadership and a lack of action. It is hurting our people beyond the lava, unnecessarily so. You as a council cannot fix most of this, but I urge you to please do what you can to prevent further unnecessary harm. As Ms. Edwards-Hunt said, perhaps property tax relief or commercial property tax relief would be useful, or any other relief that you can do. I ask you to save our towns from the unnecessary secondary effects of the crisis. Thank you.
Mahalo for your testimony, Senator. Thank you very much. Identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My
Good
name
morning.
is Gail Buck. I'm a retired business teacher from Portland, Maine. And I live on Moku Street in Leilani Estates for 5 years now. That's why we retired. Our house is a half a mile up on Moku from Leilani. And we have Lloyd's of London insurance with no lava coverage and no loss of use coverage. And we have a mortgage. My statement today is, I feel we have been treated poorly by the county. We stayed in our home the whole month of May because we were told we could at our own risk. And that was fine with us. But they said, if you leave, you're not going to get back in. We were able to stay there in May. We had power. We could drive around the streets and see what the lava was doing, whether or not it was threatening us. We could drive north out of Moku if we had to leave. We could drive south out of Moku if we had to leave. And if in an extreme emergency, we could walk out along the power line road. We were aware of our choices, our chances. I think there were 3 days when the sulfur was bad. We were able to close up our house, have the ceiling fans going, and have some baking soda and water in front of a fan. And it was fine. We still have greenery around our house. Then, I think it was May 31st, we were told, you have 1 day, you must get out or you will be arrested. They didn't tell us they were going to turn off the power at noon. That was cruel. I left on June 1st, went to a friend's house. My partner stayed because he had to build a house for the cats. People were telling us, oh, you can come stay with us, but, 2 cats? I don't know about that. And then I was stressing because the county said, you got to be out, you're going to be arrested if you don't, and also you're going to be blockaded in.
Thank you. You have 30 seconds to summarize.
We are now paying rent in HPP while our house is still fine. We are asking to be allowed back into our home, to have the community center back, and have the power restored. Lastly, we should have been allowed to make our own decisions whether or not our house was safe to live in. We were not given that choice. I'd like to pass this photo around so you people can see where our house is in relationship to the lava and the greenery around it.
Thank you. Could you give it to the county clerk on that side? No, we're not going to do copies, right? Thank you. Mr. Cornell, go ahead. Identify yourself for the record. Yes, yes.
My hearing's terrible, so.
Oh, okay. Let me speak a little louder. Put your press your mic on. Is it on the button, the red button at the bottom?
What do I do? I turn it on?
Yeah, press that button.
There, how's that?
There you go.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
My name is Michael Correll. I live on the north end of Moku. My home is about 45 feet higher and a mile from the ground level of Fissure 8. It's about 75 feet higher and a half mile from the ground level of the lava at its nearest approach. I have at no time been in imminent danger from the lava. If I had have been, because of the terrain, I'd have had plenty of warning to get out safely, even from new fissures opening higher up. The only disaster I've experienced is the one the county created for me. Except for the county's actions, I would still be safely ensconced in my home. I was affected from the first evacuation edict. I did not evacuate and was severely impacted by the county's barring anyone from returning. I was in effect locked inside the area. I could not replenish water or food. I could not access medical attention for the animals, and I did need to. Not even for myself if needed. That did change once they finally began issuing the placards. I kept myself aware and informed of the situation by making reconnaissance drives around the streets between Leilani and Kahukai. I never encountered any dangerous situations while doing this. Then the mandatory evacuation edict came down. They said that no one would be forced out of their home, no one would be arrested for staying in their home, but would be if found outside their home. Then my power was cut off with no warning. I still chose to stay. I found that having no power to be an inconvenience I could live with. What I could not live with was being blinded to the situation. No telephone, no internet, no news, the threat of arrest if I was found outside my home checking on the lava threat. The county put me at risk where I had not been before. I could no longer protect myself. From the new edicts handed down at the July 31st meeting, our placards are now being held hostage. Among other things, we can take almost anyone in with us, but if anyone takes any media people in for any reason, their placard will be forfeit.
Please summarize. You have 30 seconds.
It is insufferable that my placard and my ability to visit my home to do maintenance are being held hostage to the county's whims. This instance has the overpowering reek of the county trying to cover up its actions. Now, that's the end of my prepared statement. Now, from what one of my neighbors said a little bit earlier, the misinformation, the misrepresentations, and the ignorance that's been demonstrated by the county throughout this whole thing is part of the reason I have absolutely no confidence in anything told to me by the county about what's going on. Thank you.
Mahalo for your testimony. Thank you.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Hi,
identify
I'm
yourself.
Andrea Rosanov, and I live in Leilani Estates, and I moved back in last night. I slept last night for the first time in my home in 3 months since May 3rd. And it's wonderful to be back. And I want to thank you all for being here and taking time to listen to us. I think it's so important that you get this kind of information from not just us in Leilani Estates, the ones who are living there, the ones who are evacuated, but also the people who have lost their homes all the way down, vacation land and so on. There's such a number of them, especially the ones that are still staying here or planning on moving back or trying to move back. This is an absolutely huge event that has happened, and it's wonderful that not one person lost their life. I'm so glad of that, and that's really important. But the other thing that's happened is we're never going to go back because the whole world has heard about the Big Island in a way it's never heard of before. And you cannot put that back into the bottle. The whole world has heard about it, and you all know that because my guess is you've heard from as many people around the world as I have. It's all over the world, and also it's a huge event for not only Puna and Leilani, but for the whole Big Island. It's gigantic. It will never completely go back, and I think that there's going to be a lot of people around the world who know about the Big Island now who are going to want to come and see us and visit us. It's just in them, and they're going to want to do that. I was lucky enough that I was a resident of Leilani, so I got my placard because my grandson's been living at the house almost all this time. And we got SO2 meters for ourselves because we didn't want to be endangered. And the SO2 meters, just before the lava stopped, was just at the very most 0.1, 0.2 parts per million. And we have 2 SO2 meters so we can compare, and up at our house is 0, 0, 0. It's a lot safer in micro areas than the overall thing that has happened. And that's one thing you could have heard if you had been able and had the process, and if Civil Defense had had the process of being able to hear from different, from parts of Leilani, because they could get more information in making the decisions that you have to make. And the county's going to have to make so many far-reaching decisions, and Finance Committee, very importantly, over the next year and a half, that's going to affect all of us. It's going to affect the whole island and the visitors that are going to come, no matter what,
Yes.
whatever we say.
You have
And
30
the
seconds.
tourism-
I'm sorry. Go
Okay,
ahead.
and the Tourism Authority, of course, they need to put out that Hawaii is safe, which it is, and to maximize the visitors. But our towns, remember also that Puna has, this last thing I'm going to say, Puna has gone from the fastest growing area in Hawaii to bang, huge, absolutely huge. What's going to happen to it? All these decisions, and I also want to say, let's make these decisions together. Try to come up with a process where you guys can get the experience and the knowledge and the emotion and everything else from the people who've been affected by it as we all go forward together and make the best decisions we can for the best. Aloha for our island. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Steve Sparks, and I'm a Leilani resident. I'm also on the Leilani Residents Group. We formed a group. We've got about 200 people now who have communicated with each other, and we have concerns. We are having a problem with changing policies. We need clarity as to what the policies are. They seem to change every day. You can go talk to one person, and a police officer or a civil defense person. Nobody knows what's going on. They know what the last thing their person told them that morning. You're not telling us. They are not telling us. There's a total lack of communication with the people who live there. I mean, when they evacuated us, they didn't say we need to evacuate because the lava's coming, because they just said evacuate. Some said because of the air quality, some said because of the, I mean, there's a total lack of organization here. There's also a problem with the boundaries of these mandatory evacuations and the voluntary evacuations. Who set that boundary up? They obviously hadn't walked the area. They haven't been there. They took a map, drew a line along Pomokai, and said, this is the boundary. It's like that type of emergency management is poorly planned. We have emergency management plans that somebody has to look at. Did anybody look at them? It's really upsetting to have worked on the emergency plan and have it be ignored. How many people are you going to have to volunteer to do this if nobody pays attention to anything? We have the Puna Community Development Plan. It's not being paid attention to. It's upsetting. We also need better notifications of what's going on. At some point in time, if this thing stops, you're going to pull that guard, the police are going to pull the guards away. How are we going to protect our homes now? We've had one guy shoot at somebody else. Is that what we want?
You have 30 seconds. Thank you to summarize.
It's a matter of we need a plan to go forward now. We need a plan to know what's that going to cost us. You're the finance committee. How much are we going to spend? Like Russell said, we've got to get guards. We've got to get a whole policing situation because of the evacuation, we have a whole bunch of empty houses that people are squatting in now, even with placards. Things have to change and we need a plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sandra Baker.
There.
Aloha,
Thank you.
everyone.
Aloha.
I am the owner of Strato's New York Pizzeria in Pahoa and soon to open in Honolulu. I have lost 86% of my business. I've lost 10 of my 15 employees. I can barely keep the employees I have. And we're probably about 3 days from closing. There is no help for us. The only thing we're told, oh, you get SBA, SBA. SBA told me it's going to be several months before I would even see any money. We can't hold on any longer. I have a business ready to open in Honolulu. It's been stuck in a permit issue for a year and a half. Valerie Poindexter, I believe, knows about it. I am one signature away from getting that permit. It's in the fire. If I get that one signature, I can open Honolulu and carry Pahoa until we move to the new Puna Kai. All I need is to get that Honolulu open so I don't have to lay off any more employees and we can continue to serve the community. With that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony.